Welcome back to Ecto-1 Radio. This is a show provided by Ticket Stubs and Cassette Tapes, a movie podcast. You can check us out on Facebook. You can check us out on Twitter at Ticket Stubs and Cassette Tapes. We will post links to our shows, our reviews there. You can check out our YouTube page as well, where it's all Ghostbusters content right now. I'm planning on doing other stuff besides Ghostbusters, but for the time being, I have some gaming videos from Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, from Ghostbusters the Video Game Remastered 2009, and I also have all of the episodes of Ecto-1 Radio uploaded to YouTube as well. So another listening avenue for you there. As I'm recording today is June 23rd, 2023. We are one day closer to Ghostbusters. I guess you could just say right now, Ghostbusters 4. And yes, for all those who may be somewhat offended by that, this is the fourth movie in the Ghostbusters timeline. I know that there are technically already 4 Ghostbusters movies out if you count the 2016 reboot. I don't count it because it's not in this timeline. It's its own separate thing. So this is Ghostbusters 4, for all intents and purposes. Tentatively titled Ghostbusters Firehouse. We still do not have a final title yet for this film. I do expect that we will have one, I would say pretty quickly. I don't think it'll be within the next couple of weeks or anything, but it's getting about to the point where it's getting time to settle on a title. To be quite honest with you, I'm sure they probably already have settled on a title, but maybe you're just not ready to put it out yet. So it'll be fun. It'll be interesting when they do. It'll be something to talk about, something to think about. And hopefully it'll be something that can continue to get us excited and keep us on a good path towards the next Ghostbusters film, which I know we all are excited for. You should be if you're not anyway. Alright, let's jump into some fun stuff tonight. We're going to start off with the most recent bit of news. And by recent, I mean today, as of when I'm recording, again, June 23rd. And the news that we have, actually, I'll start back here. A few days ago, we got word that the second unit filming in New York City had completed. Meaning that everything that they were shooting in New York for the new movie finished up. I think it was mostly just like car chase scenes, stuff with the Ecto. I know that they did go to the firehouse a couple of days. I'm pretty sure, based on the photos of them, at the firehouse, that it wasn't any actual filming for the movie, but it was probably rather pickup shots, as well as basically scanning the environment around the firehouse. The reason they do that is because if you look at the London, the UK firehouse set that we have built on a soundstage, which again you can see in the Instagram, I believe it was Instagram story of McKenna Grace that she released on Ghostbusters Day. You can see the indoor firehouse set that they built there, but around it you can see green walls, essentially green screens, right? So they go to the real firehouse in New York, and what they were doing was doing basically some scanning to get scale and to get the things that they're going to have to create digitally around the firehouse to make it look like it's actually in New York, the one they built on the soundstage. So basically just doing some cleanup stuff that they've got to get done for post-production. And they finished that up. They finished all of that up, everything in New York, a few days ago. I don't remember the exact day, but I think it was this past week. And then today, on June 23rd, we got an official announcement through Eric Reich, who is executive producer on the new film, through his Instagram story, that they have just wrapped filming in London. So that means that all of the filming, unless we have to do any sort of reshoots, all of the filming for the new movie has wrapped. It's done. It's completed. So where do we go from here? Well, it's funny you should ask. We actually had a photo also posted by Jason Reitman, basically showing the No Ghost logo wearing headphones. And that has been confirmed by Ghostbusters News to be the shirt that has been designed for the sound team. So basically now what you're moving into is sound design for the movie, where they'll add in all the sound. You're gonna start working the score into the movie, the music into the movie, and they'll also be working on all the other things, such as, digital effects, any CGI they have to do, and cutting the film together. I'm sure as of right now, they're probably putting together, or have already put together, a rough cut of the film. And I don't mean a complete or nearly complete cut of the film, obviously, but it's where you basically take all your scenes that you shot, you put them in the order that you want them, and that kind of gives you an idea of the flow of the movie and where you need other stuff. So we're moving into basically what I would say is like the third phase of a movie. You have pre-production, you have production, and then you have post-production. Where obviously we're done with pre-production, now we're done with production, and now you move into post-production. Now, post-production on films usually take anywhere between 6 months to a year. The post-production for a film, again, usually takes more time than the actual shooting of the film, because there's so much to do, right? And obviously this depends on what kind of movie you're making, but a movie like this where there's going to be digital effects, you're going to have stuff that's going to require a lot of music, a lot of sound design. You've created this whole firehouse inside a soundstage that now you've got to build everything around it digitally. There's a lot to do. And now they're sort of moving into that phase. This is kind of where, I think we've all said this is why we're skeptical of the December 20th release date. Is, again, today as we sit here, it's June 23rd, so 6 months, which is pretty much kind of the minimum for post-production. 6 months from today would be December 23rd. So that basically means, and the film will have to be done before December 20th, obviously. You can't just finish the film the day before and then ship it to the theaters to start shooting, or you wouldn't want to do that anyway. You have to market the film, you have to do all this other stuff, right? So, if they're going to hit that release date, the post-production has to be rushed quite a bit. Now, a few things I want to say on that topic while I'm there. Could they do it? Yes. Could they do it and it still be good? Yes. Okay. I will tell you from my experience with Jason Reitman and him being, such a skilled director, and I know he didn't direct this movie, Gil Kenan did, but I do trust that if they're sticking to this December 20th release date, I'm trusting that they know, not just believe, but they know that they can hit it with no issues, and they will be done well in advance of that time frame, and they'll have the movie ready and can market it for a couple of months, and they'll be good to go. I have faith that they can do that if they stick to it. I don't think that with a movie like this, it's not a huge budget movie. I'm assuming. We don't really know. I don't think we know what the budget is, but it's not going to be on the level of like your Disney movies, your Marvel movies, whatever. But it is a movie that you could easily have wasted money on if you don't do a good job with it, because it's one of those movies that it rides the line, right? When you release a movie like this, you have to market it well. You have to get good word of mouth, and this is not new. We sort of experienced this with Afterlife, but you want to do everything you can to make sure that the movie is successful, and not pushed out a rush product, because you look at Afterlife, which critically I understand didn't do wonderful, but fan-wise did fantastic, and that movie, broke even and made a profit, obviously, but wasn't a massive profit. And again, we have to go back to COVID, and when this movie was released, there was a lot of people still not going back to theaters, so there are other factors, right? There are a lot of other factors that play into that, but you want to make sure that you're putting out a product that's not rushed, and a product that has been given the proper time that it needs to be completed. And I think that Jason Reitman will oversee that and make sure that that gets done. So I have faith that if they're going to stick to December 20th, this movie will be done. Now, I'm still holding to the opinion that it will not release December 20th, and that they will push it to the spring of next year, because basically, if you start post-production right now, you could give yourself to Christmas, maybe even January, to get everything that you want done, and the movie completely finished and in the can, and then you can market it for a couple of months and then put it out, and that would be a perfect, normal time frame. And I don't know why they would want to put such a difficult restriction on themselves, which is time. And maybe I'm off. Maybe a lot of us are off who are talking about this, and maybe again, they're perfectly on schedule where they want to be for that December 20th release date. These are things we just don't know, right? And we've spent some time talking about this, so I don't want to go much farther down this road again, but we will see, right? But bringing it back to my original topic, production wrapped today, and so that's good to hear. It's good to hear that they got through it seemingly with no issues. Production started on March the 20th, so you basically have a little over 2 months, close to 3 months, basically production. It doesn't sound like from what we've seen or heard that they had many issues. I mean, you would think, a lot of times with movies nowadays, if people have issues shooting a movie, it gets out there and people know about it, and we hear about that a lot, especially when you look at like Lucasfilm with the Star Wars movies. I mean, you always get that kind of information usually gets out there. So hopefully everything went fine. Hopefully everything in post-production will go smoothly, and we'll get a good film, and I'm excited for it. But with production wrapping today, we are one step closer to the release of the next Ghostbusters live-action film. And as a lifelong Ghostbusters fan, I cannot tell you how exciting it is just to hear myself say that. I've talked about this before, but we got to consider ourselves lucky. We're in a good time right now. Maybe not with a lot of things. I know the world's crazy, and there's a lot of stuff going on every day with politics and all kinds of stuff. Social media, the internet, pretty much just seems like an evil place most days. But as Ghostbusters fans, I think we should be able to take a step back and look at the situation and say, you know what? This is nice. This is nice. Because if you were a Ghostbusters fan who grew up in the 90s, who grew up in the 2000s, or, you were just around then, it was dead. The franchise just felt super dead, and the only thing that was keeping it alive were the fans and those fan forums, online and blogs and things like that, where we could sort of look at discussions and have discussions with other Ghostbusters fans, or people who were in their own Ghostbusters community, within the different franchises in the States. People who build proton packs, ecto replicas, traps, slime blowers, PKE meters, whatever. That was the community that really kept it alive amongst themselves, me included. And so it's really great to be in a spot now where we're getting more Ghostbusters stuff, and hopefully really good stuff. I think we've gotten one good movie so far, so I say keep it rolling, and I'm excited for it. So, good time to be a Ghostbusters fan. Always exciting to hear more from the set of the new movie, and I'm really excited to see what comes next. Is it a title? Is it some sort of a small teaser? Will we hear some bit of the score? It's pretty exciting to think about. So let's just keep in mind how fortunate we are. All right, let's take a look at the next bit of news. Now, this is from last week, this news. And again, I'm going to give a spoiler warning, but I don't, this is something that's been around for a while. So, I will say, spoiler warning for anybody who doesn't want to know anything about the movie, but this is something that's fairly well known, especially among the Ghostbusters community, about this movie at this point. So, if you know some stuff about this movie, you're probably okay. And I'm not talking about anything plot-wise. There's nothing plot-wise here. It's just a little bit of casting, that's it. But warning for anybody who just wants to be surprised completely, and I understand if that's the case. But moving on here, last week we had Dan Aykroyd confirming that Bill Murray is back for the upcoming sequel, and along with that, Dan Aykroyd also calls the story heartfelt. So we'll read this here. This article comes again from Ghostbusters News, who I love using as a source. Jason over at Ghostbusters News is incredibly detailed, has a great YouTube channel, very active on social media, so we love the work that he does. But we're going to read this article here, again, coming from Ghostbusters News. As production of the upcoming Ghostbusters sequel continues in the United Kingdom, Dan Aykroyd, who previously confirmed his involvement in the film, has been busy making the media rounds, being asked about the film, and promoting his award-winning Crystal Head vodka brand. In a recent exclusive with the Metro newspaper, Aykroyd shed more light on the sequel while affirming the speculated involvement of franchise original Bill Murray. In speaking about the production, Aykroyd, who earlier this week had high praise for co-star Patton Oswalt, referring to him as a comic genius, would say, quote, "We're 3/4 through filming, which means it's got to be edited and mixed, and the CGI has to be put into it." End quote. While it's been strongly insinuated that Bill Murray would be returning in the untitled sequel, being seen multiple times in the UK, even being pictured seemingly on set alongside Aykroyd and English comedian David Walliams. We've yet to get a definitive answer on his involvement, but Aykroyd, being wonderfully loose-lipped, has confirmed that Murray will 100% be back. This is Dan Aykroyd saying, again, quote, "I'm excited about this one. It's got a beautiful, heartfelt story, a great threat, some scary moments, and it brings back Annie Potts and Ernie Hudson, Bill Murray, and myself, and we've handed the torch to new people, Finn Wolfhard, and Paul Rudd and Carrie Coon." All right, the end of the article here, that's end quote. The end of the article here says, in the forthcoming sequel, Murray and the original team members will reunite with the cast of Ghostbusters Afterlife, comprising of Paul Rudd, Carrie Coon, McKenna Grace, Finn Wolfhard, Logan Kim, and Celeste O'Connor. They will also share the screen with new additions to the franchise, including Kumail Nanjiani, Patton Oswalt, James Acaster, and Emily Allen Lind. I've actually been told that James Acaster is his name. It's not Acaster. I thought it was Acaster, but apparently it's pronounced James Acaster, so we'll go with that moving forward. But that's a bit of fun little news. Again, that was something that we've kind of known. We've kind of known that he's going to be back, and we're going to see the three original guys, the three living original guys back with Annie Potts. And so that's awesome. I mean, it's great. For me personally, could they have kept that secretive and put that in the movie? Sure. But at this point, it's almost a little bit of marketing just to put it out there that Bill Murray's in the movie, because there are several, there are people out there, you may be one of them, who are almost not interested in the Ghostbusters without Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson. I don't count myself in that group. I mean, I love those guys. Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray are two of my absolute favorite actors who have ever lived. I could watch, and any movie that they are in, I could watch 1,000 times over, and probably have. And, when you think about Bill Murray, I mean, even though I'm such a big Ghostbusters fan, I mean, I don't tie him to Ghostbusters in my own head. I mean, my gosh, you have to look at, things like Caddyshack, or, his time on Saturday Night Live with a lot of skits that he was a part of that are so funny. Or when you look at, other things that he's been in, like Stripes or Meatballs. I mean, Bill Murray is just, he's one of those one-of-a-kind actors with that sarcastic comedy that I think is, it's, I don't want to say it's dead nowadays. I think there are some people who do that version of comedy, but guys like him, guys like Chevy Chase, those kind of guys you just don't see a lot of anymore. And guys like Dan Aykroyd, who's not the comedic lead, but he's always, one of the biggest utility players in any project that he's a part of. He's such a good utility comedic guy. Again, he's been a part of some fantastic movies. I mean, again, Ghostbusters is only one of the things that he's a part of. I mean, you can look at his time on Saturday Night Live and the iconic skits that he was a part of. You can look at, I always think of The Great Outdoors. I love him in that movie. I always think of The Blues Brothers, which he's great in, obviously. Even to some of the lesser known movies that I still love him in, like, Nothing But Trouble, which is not a very good movie, but, I find his work in that still pretty funny. And or even Caddyshack 2, which is not a great movie, but he's funny in that. So, I love seeing those guys back. I know that, Ernie Hudson is not as prolific as those guys are, but, he's a Ghostbuster, and he's, a big part of the team, and I'm excited to see what they do with the character of Winston moving forward. And so, I'm really excited to see those guys back, but you do have a section of the fan base who are almost not interested in the movie or anything Ghostbusters related if these guys are not in it, which I understand from a certain point, but I also just really love Ghostbusters. And I want to see that franchise move forward. And the reality is that the franchise cannot move forward, with those guys forever. They just can't. It just can't. I mean, it's, that's life. These guys are getting up there in age. They can't, they can't run around, in the Ecto with the proton packs anymore. It's not something they can physically do, and it's quite honestly not something they want to do. If you listen to them talk, I mean, even Dan Aykroyd has said multiple times, like, we're, going back to the late 90s, when he was writing scripts for a third Ghostbusters movie, would always say, my character, Harold's character, Billy's character, we're too old and fat to be running around with, all this equipment now. We need new, younger, fresh blood. And so I think that there's a path forward where we can keep these guys in the mix, obviously have them there if they want to be there, but at the same time move forward with a new cast of characters who we can, come to love and appreciate on their own, and just appreciate the story that's given us, because that's what I've always loved about Ghostbusters. It's the characters, but it's also the story and the lore that was created, in that first film, and continuing on in the second film, and Ghostbusters Afterlife. I mean, or even, I know it's not connected or canon, but even looking at the real Ghostbusters or the Ghostbusters video game, all that stuff is great. So I'm interested in seeing the franchise go forward and do what it has to do to move forward, albeit in a respectful way and in a good way. And I don't want to just see it move forward if it's not going to be quality stuff. And I don't think that's where we're headed while we have Jason Reitman around. I don't think that's where we'll ever head. But, I'm excited to hear that Bill Murray's back. I know that a lot of you are really excited to hear that. I'm excited to see these guys, on the screen again as Ray Stantz and Peter Venkman and Winston Zeddemore, and Annie Potts' character is Janine. I'm excited to see her come back. I would love to see Rick Moranis back. I don't know that it's going to happen. I don't know that that'll ever happen. I would love to see it at least one more time. But I mean, it's just always great to hear stuff like this and know that you can go into the movie and just knowing that they'll be there and they'll be a part of it. That's always a good feeling. So it's cool to hear this. Just wanted to make a mention of it on the show here. I did want to clear up one thing. Now, we did a couple of weeks ago, I did the show on Ghostbusters Day, or a couple days after Ghostbusters Day. And again, we talked about all the stuff released that day, all the news that we got, which wasn't a whole lot, but we did talk about it. I did neglect to talk about the video game and what we got out of, what content we got out of that on Ghostbusters Day. So I did want to go back and catch up to speed on that real quick. And I'm sure, at this point, you've probably all heard about it, but I did want to cover it just to, cover all my bases and make sure that I, talk about it a little bit. So for Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, we had kind of a new trailer drop that day on Ghostbusters Day for a DLC update, or whatever they're calling it. I'm assuming it was like a DLC coming, but at the end of that trailer, we got a little something special. We got an orange hand connected to an arm that's wearing a purple robe with claws, seemingly long nails, putting its hand down on the Ecto-1, and that's all we got. Now, if you'll look closely at that, and any real Ghostbusters fan would know this, that is Sam Hain from the real Ghostbusters, which is really cool. So Sam Hain is going to be coming. Now I don't think they've officially announced this yet, but I mean, it's, come on, it's pretty obvious. Sam Hain is going to be added to Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed later this year. That's awesome to hear. As a player of that game, though, all I worry about is how, freaking hard is it going to be to defeat that guy. I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I come up against skilled people playing as like the Terror Dog or even, still with Slimer, it's hard enough to win fights, but Sam Hain is going to be a troublemaker in that game. But nevertheless, that's really cool news. I'm glad that they're doing these tie-ins to, stuff like the real Ghostbusters. And, I think they get it. I think they know that a lot of us grew up watching that show and, being fans of that show as well as the movies. So I'm really glad they're tying that stuff in. If you go onto the YouTube channel and watch my playthrough, you'll see that my character is Egon from the real Ghostbusters. I've got the jumpsuit, the hair, the glasses, all the equipment from the real Ghostbusters, which is just so cool to me. And with the cartoon, layout of the game, it's almost like playing a real Ghostbusters version, video game, which is really cool. It's really fun to do that. Kind of, my 12-year-old self would have been in love with that, and as an adult, I'm in love with it too. So that's really cool, and I'm excited for that. We also got news that Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed is going to be released on the Nintendo Switch. So if you are a Nintendo Switch user and you're a Ghostbusters fan, there you go. You can take real Ghostbusters on the go, and that's really cool. I'm not a Switch user. I was a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago. I had a Nintendo Switch, played a few games on it. Me and my friends, we got it. We wanted to play some Mario together, some Super Smash Brothers, and some other things. We had a lot of fun with that, but I have since gotten rid of it. Kind of almost wish I still had it so I could try out, Spirits Unleashed on it. But that's great for expansion. It's always good. Get more people out there to play, and hopefully they'll enjoy it as well if they haven't already played it. Let's move to the next bit of news. We had this announcement come out 2 days ago on June the 21st. And this announcement is that a Ghostbusters location tour is coming to New York City this fall. And as a part of this tour, fans are going to be chauffeured inside an Ecto-1. Folks, I'll tell you what. This is one of the coolest things I heard this week. To be able to be escorted around and shown with a guide, a tour guide, all of the Ghostbusters filming locations. But you're not walking it, and you're not just doing it in a regular car. You're being taken around in an Ecto-1. A really, really good-looking Ecto-1 that's very screen accurate. That is awesome. That would be incredibly awesome. I unfortunately don't live in New York or close to New York, so I don't know that I'll be able to partake in that, but I would love to see some video come out of that, and I would love to sort of experience it that way. But this year I guess it's probably going to be around Halloween time. The New Jersey I want to say, I don't know if it's the New Jersey Ghostbuster. I don't know if there even is a New Jersey Ghostbusters. But I know that I know that there's like an Ecto-1 New Jersey. So there, you can check out their Instagram page, Ecto-1 _NJ. You can check that out for like the trailer of this event that's going to take place. This will give, I'm just reading from the article here, in time for this year's spooky season, those behind New Jersey's premier Ectomobile replica, the Ecto-1 New Jersey, have announced Ghost Tours NYC, a limited time chance for fans to visit all of the most notorious Ghostbuster sites while being driven by a real Ghostbuster. The The 2-month engagement will see fans visiting iconic locations such as Central Park West, the New York City Public Library, and of course the aforementioned Hook and Ladder 8, the Ghostbusters Firehouse. So we'll get some more info on this pretty soon, but it sounds like, again, it is limited. It'll only go for a couple of months, but this will be something really cool, and I'm excited to see what comes of this, and the people that get to be a part of it. I would love to see some footage out of that, because I can't imagine any better way to experience a tour of the Ghostbusters filming locations than being driven around in the Ecto-1. That's pretty incredible. All right, a little bit more news that we got today. So the San Diego Comic-Con this year, which is, again, the annual, Comic-Con. Obviously, it takes place in San Diego, which runs from July the 20th to July the 23rd, so that's a Thursday through a Sunday. This is typically where, if you're a fan of, a film, a comic book movie, or, something like Ghostbusters, you would look to get some sort of news regarding the movie, maybe even a trailer. I think there are some instances, they have panels as well where they interview the filmmakers, the actors, and I think in some instances you might even get to see the full film early. This year, it has been announced that Sony will not be in attendance for San Diego Comic-Con. So, unfortunately, we're not going to get any Firehouse news out of SDCC. So, I wouldn't say it's disappointing, but, at the same time, I did kind of have a hope in the back of my mind that, maybe we could just get something, just a little taste of what's to come. And, unfortunately, we're going to have to wait. Again, I know that it was always going to be far-fetched. That's less than a month away. So, it was always going to be a little far-fetched to get anything. But that was something that I did kind of hope would happen. So, for anybody who's thinking or sitting around, waiting for Comic-Con San Diego this year to, get any Ghostbusters news, just so don't hold your breath, because probably, pretty much, most definitely not going to happen. So, don't mean to ruin your day or anything like that, but just wanted to give the heads up since I noticed that news going around today. All right. Let's talk about something for a few minutes here before we wrap up the show. One thing I did want to talk about was, it is in relation to the new film, was, what can we expect a movie that will set up another movie, or are we going to get a one-off story? And I kind of got to thinking about this today, because I saw that, Infinity War, I think, was on TV, or it was, streaming, and somebody in the house had it on TV today. So I kind of got to thinking, that's a movie that was made with the obvious intention that there was going to be a follow-up movie to it. And I got to thinking, that's kind of interesting. I wonder if Ghostbusters would ever do that. So basically what I mean is, would we have some sort of cliffhanger at the end of a movie that would, lead us into another movie? I know that Afterlife kind of did it with the after credit scene with the containment unit, which was fun, and it was, really awesome to see that, especially for the first time in theaters. But is that something we could see, where we maybe we could have a Ghostbusters movie where the villain essentially wins by the end of the movie, and it leads us into the next movie, where we get resolution, obviously, like Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, and how they kind of, work together. And I think the biggest issue with that is this is not, again, like going back to my previous points, this is not something that's guaranteed to make a profit. It's not something that is guaranteed to, do well enough to produce another movie. So you're kind of taking a risk if you do some sort of cliffhanger like that. But with Ghost Core and everything, and the fact that they've set this up and they're really working to push out, content with an animated show, an animated movie, obviously the live action film, comic books. I would say that they probably think it's going to do well enough, to continue making movies. So, it is a risk that you could take. And I just got to thinking of that because, wouldn't it be interesting, like take the original Ghostbusters for example. Now, this would never have happened, obviously, back in the day, nor did it need to happen because that first Ghostbusters it's a perfect movie, and by Ghostbusters fan standards, it's just a perfect film. It's, you watch that movie and there's seemingly nothing wrong with it. Again, if you're a Ghostbusters fan, you may be a regular moviegoer and think differently, but there's not anything in the first Ghostbusters movie that I would change personally. But let's just play hypotheticals here for a minute. What if you got to the end of that film and the boys get up on the rooftop to approach Gozer, and Gozer comes out and she kind of starts wreaking havoc and basically somehow makes her way from that rooftop into the city, into the streets, starts tearing stuff apart, and then you get a cut, and then we wait till the next movie to see how this is resolved, what's happening. Basically, what we're seeing is that she's winning, or that she's won and she's taken over Earth, and we have to see what happens next in the next movie. Now, again, that wouldn't be, that's not something I'm obviously advocating for it. Again, the first movie's, the ending's perfect. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. There would be no reason to do that, anything like that. But it would just be interesting to see. It would be interesting to see more of a threat, kind of like a Thanos kind of character, right? Even in, if you look at Ghostbusters 2, I've oftentimes said, and if you've listened to my review of Ghostbusters 2, you've probably heard me say this. I would have loved if, towards the ending of that movie, maybe Vigo gained some sort of temporary, like, power boost or whatever, to where he was a little bit stronger and he could essentially break the slime off of that museum and walk out into New York. And, this is after he's paralyzed, the Ghostbusters, so they kind of have to wait for that to wear off. And then they have to get up and go out of the museum and go basically stop Vigo in the dark, New York City streets. And he's terrorizing, and he's out there amongst the people, and they've got to go chase him down and fight him. I've always thought that would be incredible, but, you can almost do that the same way, where Vigo walks outside, the Ghostbusters are paralyzed, cut to black, and you have to wait till the next movie to see the resolution of that. That would be kind of cool. It would be something different. It would definitely be different for Ghostbusters, right? Ghostbusters has kind of always just been a one and done story, and I know with Afterlife that was kind of you can almost say that movie was kind of like that, because it was a continuation of that first overall storyline, right, with Gozer, and the fact that Ivo Shandor had built multiple temples for Gozer, and he built the one in Oklahoma, the one in New York. So when the Ghostbusters defeated Gozer in the first movie, they didn't kill her, they just sent her back to where she came from, and this movie opened a portal, and Afterlife opened the portal back into the world, our world, albeit just in a different place in Oklahoma, right? So it was kind of a continuation of that first story. So, we've kind of done that, but not really to the level I'm talking about. And, there's really not much point to what I'm talking about. It's just more for fun and, just something to play around with in my head. And I don't know that it would ever be something they would consider. If they did just want to do something a little different and fun, sure, it might be something they would do. But I don't think that that's what this movie's going to be. I think this movie's, I think they're really going to try to show everybody with this movie that, Ghostbusters is a franchise that can keep going and that people can fall in love with again, similar to how they did with Afterlife. And this franchise can garner new fans, and then, maybe down the line we could get that kind of movie where it's kind of that cool concept. So it definitely wouldn't be anything new as far as just the world of movies, but it would definitely be something new to Ghostbusters. So just something fun to think about, just something, just food for thought, just a little fun topic here at the end of all the news segments of the show. But it was just something I thought about today. So, maybe we could see that in the future. I think it would be cool if they did it the right way. Certainly. So, yeah. Fun little topic there for you. All right. Well, guys, that about wraps up the show for this week. The next... Let me actually check the calendar here. So... the next show is set to release the first weekend of July, or I guess technically you could say the second weekend of July, because July the 1st is on a Saturday. So July the 9th, which it'd be Sunday, July the 9th, somewhere around there, July the 8th or 9th is where the next episode is going to release. So will we know anything more about this movie? Heading into that weekend, it's doubtful. I think that some time's going to have to pass before we know any more. But, as news slowly keeps leaking out, I'll keep covering it. We'll keep talking about it. And I'm excited to see, where we go in this marketing process, where we go, in, what little information they decide to give us. I'm excited to see how that goes. And, maybe we can piece together a few things to know about this movie before we see it. Not much. Obviously, we don't want spoilers, but it's going to be fun to see how this post-production process goes and what we can get out of it before we really hit into the big marketing slate and the release of the movie. Maybe we'll hear something more about the cartoon soon. Maybe we'll hear more about the animated movie. I don't know. They could wait until after the release of this movie to do all that stuff or to say anything about it. So we'll see. We'll see what they decide to do. But that's all I have for you here today. All right, guys, it's been Ecto-1 Radio, another episode of Ecto-1 Radio. Thanks for listening. I really enjoy it. I appreciate it. Listen, if you could please do something for me, though. If you're listening on any of the podcasts, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, doesn't matter. Wherever you're listening, please give us a review. Please follow us, subscribe to us. Go to our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, which haven't been super active, but, please jump on there and, make sure to follow us there. Go to our YouTube channel and make sure to give us a subscribe. This is a great way for me to keep gauging your interest in the topics that we cover here and, alter those in a way that, I can give you the best show that I can. And, it keeps it fun for the both of us. So, if there is one ask I have of you, that would be it. Please go make sure to give us a follow or subscribe anywhere that you are listening to us, and leave a review. Please leave a review. I would much appreciate it. Hopefully it's a 5-star review. I'm going to kind of push you in that direction. And if you're listening and you enjoy this, please do so. But all right, guys, this has been Ecto-1 Radio, a show provided by Ticket Stubs and Cassette Tapes. I'm Andy, and I'm your host, and we will catch you next time.